Hi, everybody. My name is Angela, and this is my new channel. It's called Windows and Waves, and it's basically a discussion topic on um, life on and off of benzodiazepines, Klonopin, Xanax, Ativan, Valium, Ambien. There's so many out there, and there are so many of us who found themselves with a dependency to a drug that we had no idea was going to hurt us. So this isn't going to be like any other channel where we just talk about the facts and the documentary style, but it's also not going to be a video where I chronologically tell you about what it's like to recover on day 1, day 8, year 2. That might come into play here and there, but for the most part, it's just going to be different topics and feedback from you guys. I have a not a website. I have an email address that I would love to get stories to. That is windowsandwaves@gmail.com. That would be Windows N, so the letter N, waves@gmail.com. Also, subscribe. Please subscribe. And I will do my best to answer as many of your comments, questions, whatever. I will say that I am not a professional. I am just somebody who has been on this wild, hellish ride, and feel that there's so much to talk about that isn't being addressed right now. This is very ad lib. I don't have a script or anything along those lines. I just have an idea of what I want to talk about and where that's going to go. So, like I said, any advice, any questions, any topics that you want to talk about, let me know, please. First, I do think it's important that you know my story so that you know that I am not just some random person talking about this. My journey started in 2015. I had a pretty substantial breakdown that ended in me being begged to go get some help from my family. And I lived in a tiny little town in Alaska at the time, so we didn't have a whole lot of resources. There was only one place to go to talk to a therapist, and the clinician was actually through something called telemed. It's basically Skype with a clinician to prescribe you drugs. It was kind of crazy. And for a little while, my clinician kind of used me as a human dartboard to try to figure out exactly where I was needing help. I went through so many different anti-anxieties, mood stabilizers, antidepressants, and nothing was really working. My anxiety was through the roof. To the psychotic side of things, I was thinking I had scabies and washing myself with straight tea tree oil, resulting in burns all over my body, and stuff like that. I wasn't healthy. And then I brought my husband in once, and we sat down and we started talking with the guy and the telemed, and he prescribed me Klonopin. He prescribed me 0.5 milligrams twice a day. Twice a day. And the only thing he said was that there was a chance of dependency, so I needed to be careful. That's what I worked with, the chance of dependency. Nothing about alcohol, nothing about what withdrawal would be like, nothing. Ironically, he was a doctor with the only mental health institution in the state, and that's important later. I started taking Klonopin, and it was amazing. It was the first time in my life where I had no anxiety. I felt like I could think clearly. I wasn't afraid to say the things I wanted to say. I felt a lot better, but what I was doing was drinking heavily. Before I got put on Klonopins, I was already headed towards the alcoholic side of things, and he, he didn't ask me if I drank heavily, and I didn't know. I just started taking it, and I started pretty much blacking out every night, but not really realizing it. I'd wake up in the morning, take another one, there'd be no hangover, and I'd just keep moving forward. And for a while, it was fun. And then I got it knocked up because, it only so long can you stay on 0.5 twice a day. And I was at 2 milligrams twice a day. And at that point, I told my husband that I wanted to leave him and that I wanted to be with women. Now, let me make you understand this man, my husband, was somebody I had known since I was 21 years old. He had been through everything with me. At times I questioned how strongly he felt for me, but I knew that I was loved, and he was is a great father, and we were in the process of changing towns. We were moving to a much more populated area in the state. He worked up north of where we lived by quite a lot. He'd be gone for 2 weeks at a time, 2 weeks home, and I started talking to this woman, and she manipulated her way into my life. I'm not completely innocent in this situation, but I feel like she knew what she was doing. And I will be the first to admit that I am and always have been bisexual, but more than that, I am a tragically loyal person. I will stick with you way longer than I need to. I will be there, even if I think that you may be doing something that isn't very good. I am loyal, especially to the people I love. I had been loyal to my husband for years. I was loyal to my children, and I told him I wanted to leave him, and I was in a car the next day driving away from my children and my husband and a house that was supposed to be being packed. I just drove away, walked away. No loyalty, just left. And, I had no clue that was out of character at that time. And then I started having, more of a psychotic episode, believing things that weren't necessarily true. Like, I didn't believe anything that he was telling me. He was doing everything in his power to get me to come back home to him. And I just kept going forward. And the crazy thing is, in my head, I knew what I was doing I didn't want to do, but I couldn't stop myself from doing it. And it was horrible. It was like watching a bad movie of a train crash, and I couldn't make the movie go off. So we got a divorce a couple months later. And during that time, I was living with this woman in the house that he and I bought. However, I couldn't stop being around him and my children. And I would have moments of clarity where I would let him know that I didn't want this. I didn't want to be divorced. I didn't want to be away from him. I didn't want to be away from our children. I wanted to be back to normal. So family member came, and I had another one of those moments of clarity, and he and I decided that we were going to get back together because I love him. This is hard for me. So I went to the big hospital in Anchorage and went to their mental health wing for 7 days. And the first couple days, I don't really remember because they kept me on my Klonopin, but they also put me on 1.5 milligram of Ativan 3 times a day to help with the alcohol detox, because at that point I was drinking 2 bottles of wine a night, being crazy. And I can understand looking back that they needed to make sure that I was being monitored and not suffering through the alcohol detox. But when the 7th day came and they said goodbye to me, they gave me my meds, my Klonopin, and sent me on my way. They didn't give me any Ativan, nothing. Didn't talk about tapering, nothing. And it had only been 7 days, but as a lot of us know, it doesn't take long to gain a dependency. And so I went home and I saw him, and I was just lost and confused. I wasn't feeling right. I was still kind of delusional. I knew I wanted to be with him, but I didn't know what was up from down. And within 2 weeks, I had pretty much just crumbled into a nothingness and had a moment of rage where I broke my finger or my knuckle punching the door jamb, and the internal voices were all negative, and they were being really mean and horrible, and they were just getting louder and louder and louder. And to me, I just wanted them to stop. I just wanted everything to get quiet. So I ended up taking half of my Klonopin bottle, or what was left of it. Ironically, I took it and then texted a friend, and she got a hold of him, and he ran to the house and put me in his car and drove me to sorry, I'm all shaky. Drove me to the hospital, and they put me in an institution. The same institution that the original clinician works at that gave me the Klonopin. By the time I had done this, I was on 3 milligrams twice daily. And they made me quit cold turkey in an institution. All they did was give me hydroxyzine every 8 hours. It was horrible. I hope to never, ever be put in that situation again. I am not the person that should be in one of those places. But I got out and came home, and my ex-husband had moved back into the house with my children. It was kind of wonderful, but he had also brought my father and my stepmother in, who I love dearly, but they were there to babysit me, and I was a little bitter about that, but I needed it. And he went back up to work, and my dad and my stepmother stayed with me. And on my 40th birthday, I woke up thinking I was having a heart attack. And I drove myself to the hospital. Come to find out, I needed to have my gallbladder removed. And they told me that there was no way they couldn't give me painkillers for this type of surgery, that I was going to need to have some sort of pain relief. So they gave me, of course, opiates, oxycodone, and I recovered, so in like detox withdrawal from Klonopins and taking hydrocodone, I was fuzzy. My brain was not working correctly. I couldn't understand anything. My dad left, and my husband came home, and we just couldn't mesh. He didn't understand anything I was saying or doing. I was frustrated with him. I couldn't get my words to work. And then he had to go to work again, and it felt very uncomfortable. But the intention from me and him both were, we wanted to work this out. We wanted to be a family again. while he was at work, a friend of mine introduced me to another person. I really just wanted some friends, some new friends. And she hung out quite a bit. And I think in that time period that she was hanging out, she realized that I was a broken person, that I was on opiates and recovering. And I mean, she didn't know the details, but I think she knew that I was weak, and she prayed on that. And then I texted him on the day he was coming home to tell him that, look, this person had been hanging out and had spent the night a few times, and it was a complete miscommunication between he and I. He thought I had been with her. And he asked me not to be home when he got home. And I thought he just didn't want me around anymore. My brain wasn't working. My cognitive abilities were gone. So I left. And so the first year of detox, I was in a really, really abusive relationship. She hit me quite a bit. She called me stupid. She did horrible things. And on top of that, she vilified my ex-husband to me and my children. And I was so unable to think for myself for that time period. I just went along with it. I don't know. I mean, I've never been the kind of person that would let somebody hit me without hitting them back. But I didn't. And I still had no idea what was going on with me. I knew I was scared to death every day that I was going to get knocked around. So I spent a lot of time cleaning the house, because if there was anything out of whack, dirty, anything, she would lose her mind. I am on a fixed income, and she had no job, so she was living off of me, which I still don't know how we made it work. And I finally just got sick of getting hit, and with the help of some of her family and friends, I got her out of my house, my apartment. But when she left, I suddenly just got tired. I thought I was just tired from being so stressed out all the time with her. And I laid down on the couch in August of 2017 and didn't really get off the couch until Christmas. I've lost my memory from the time I was on the benzos, and I have only pieces of the time of the first year being off. Around Christmas, my ex-husband and I started to communicate again, and it's been evident to me since day one with him that he's my best friend. He is. I adore him. Always have. And I asked him if I could come and live in the guest house out back, pay rent, do all that stuff, and he eventually said yes. And I moved back in February. And since February, I have been doing better. I still have waves that are very intense and very uncomfortable. The akathisia and the tremors are the worst. There are days when I can't even hold a pencil. I still have brain zaps and headaches that just rotate. There are days where the benzo belly is out of control. During the time I was on the couch, I gained almost 60 pounds. I will actually talk about exercise in another episode, but it was hard. So now that we're back, I spent some time trying to explain to him what was going on, and it sounded like a lot of excuses. So I did some research and couldn't believe what was going on with me was going on with hundreds of thousands of other people. And it very quickly became a passion of mine. I wrote the email to him, letting him know, this is what had happened. This is why I behaved in these ways. It was never me. It was never the Angela that he knew. We're still not back together, but we are successfully co-parenting, and we still confide in each other in quite a number of things. I will always love him, but benzos really killed my relationship. So just so you know that I'm not, again, like I said before, I'm not somebody who's just spouting off information but hasn't been through it. I will be putting up one or two episodes a week, hopefully. Some of them may be short as 5 minutes, and some of them may be as long as this one. You never really know. They're going to be different topics. There's going to be question and answer time period. Please subscribe. Please subscribe. Please subscribe. Please comment. I will try my best to answer every comment. And thank you for tuning in, guys. There'll be more soon.